Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Blow Daz.
Office Blow Aidan.
Gaynor.
Okay, Patreon's your thing. Check out the link below.
Yes.
Loads of stuff on our Patreon channel if you want to support the channel. What is it? Full watch-alongs.
Yeah.
Modern Family.
Sunny
Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Seinfeld. There's loads of stuff on there.
Yeah,
In the F is for Family.
Yeah,
loads. Welcome to Wrexham as well, which is a good one. I'm going to be starting new, the quarterback.
Yeah.
Starting this week, so getting there first.
Just finished Robbie Williams.
Yep. Why do British look down on Americans?
I wasn't aware that we did.
Me neither. Me neither. I don't look down on anyone.
No, I don't.
I think everyone's
Still a lot
equal.
shorter.
Unless you're, yeah, exactly, because I'm on the short. Unless you're an arsehole, then I just don't want to know you.
Yeah.
I don't look down on you, just don't want to know you.
No.
Simple, isn't it?
Yeah.
But,
treat people how you want to be treated.
Exactly. It'd be interesting to see this because I'm going to view this as an American mindset.
Yeah.
And what British people are saying.
Yeah.
And because I've never really come across anyone who sort of like downplays any nationality.
No.
So let's see what it is anyway. Why do the British look down on Americans?
How do you feel the British perceive Americans?
I feel like there's quite a lot of, I hate to say it, but mockery involved.
I think a lot of people think Americans are extreme.
Do you think that the British think that they're better than Americans?
I think some do, yeah.
There's a lot to make fun of, I think.
We're also fantastic at queuing as well. That's another great thing about us.
Rubbing me the wrong way because they're too extra. It doesn't seem like it's genuine.
Today, I'm in London to get to the bottom of a very important question. For as long as I can remember, I have had the sense that the British look down on Americans. This is a generalization, and therefore doesn't apply to everyone, but it's a strong enough trend that I felt I needed to investigate this further. Here's a quote from Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, that perfectly captures the feeling that I have about this. With some, the anti-American sentiment ran very hot. I was reminded of my childhood, when people warned me all the time about Americans. Too loud, too rich, too happy, too confident, too direct, too honest. I'm very curious what people are going to have to say about this. I have a feeling I'm on to...
Weird that Prince Harry there is being told that Americans too rich.
Yeah.
In the royal family, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know, with his money.
Bizarre, right?
Yeah.
something, okay? So, having said that, let's start talking to some people.
Excuse me, if you're shooting a video for YouTube, could I ask you guys a question? It'll be really brief. You hate it? Okay, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
Not that easy today, huh?
No, it's not.
Because you're in London.
Just get a moment.
Come to Manchester.
I've got too much
We're
time.
off to a very slow start. That's okay. Let's just change up the spot because I'm feeling like there's enough projections in that 100-meter radius.
You know, I always feel really terrible that everyone's first attitude is, oh, you're from America, are you? Oh, okay. You know, which is always a bit, you always feel a bit bad about that because I'm not entirely sure why we still do that, but you know.
Yeah.
How do you feel perceived as Americans by the British here in London?
A big, stupid, bellowing oaf. Yeah, genuinely. I always feel like I have to apologize for being American. It's like, I know my accent's the worst thing you'll hear today, but can I just order a coffee?
My experience, I feel like, has been a little bit different. I think that might be somewhat informed by the fact that I'm a student here.
Okay.
At first, there was a bit of a learning curve. Like, when I would speak loudly on the tube, I would kind of get looks, and people would tell me, like, you're being American, like, can you maybe not?
There's definitely sort of a sense that there is a lot of difficult things going on in America, and that America potentially could be quite a difficult place to live, especially if you're of colour or from the Middle East.
I have to admit, the inspiration to make this video came when I moved to Europe. As I've explored in previous videos on this channel, many Europeans have mixed to negative views of Americans as dumb and uncultured. But to my surprise, the same goes for the British. I've come to realize that the only people that see the British as intelligent and sophisticated are the Americans. Many Europeans, like the Portuguese or the Spanish, see a very different reality. The British that go off on holiday to get extremely drunk and break things. The British that are isolationist with Brexit. The British that don't learn foreign languages, that stick to their native tongue. Wait a second, I thought to myself. That's what Americans do. Other people do this as well?
How dare they copy us?
I kid, of course. Still, it does feel like the Brits act like the Americans of Europe, but I am certain that is not something that they'd like to hear said about them. I mean, no offense, I am American after all. Does that not prove my point though? No one wants to stoop to the level of Americans. I felt I had to get my answers directly from the source. My perception is that the UK is 1 foot in Europe, 1 foot like in the Americas. It feels like it should be in the middle of the Atlantic. Do you agree with that?
I think that's a pretty conclusive idea. Yeah, I think that's definitely true because a lot of people wouldn't even class England as being in Europe. You know, even in England, when you talk about going to Europe, no one ever thinks you mean Doncaster. They always think you mean Germany. You do get some perception that everyone's some sort of like a valley girl accent or something like that, and I think that annoys people quite a lot. But then again, it's the same way that English people are often perceived as all sort of being from London. The American dream, making yourself better and being seen to be self-improving, and it's a lot about earning money and being the best you can and going to the gym and all these kind of things.
Do you think that's, are you saying it's positive or negative?
I think it's a positive thing for Americans, but I think the way it's perceived is often everyone goes, oh, get out of my face, you know, because they probably, no one likes to enjoy someone else's success, at least in England anyway. I think in America it's probably very different. Oh great, you got a promotion. Fucking bastard, you know.
I kind of agree with that,
Yeah.
what you're saying there, because success isn't celebrated over here.
No.
It's very sort of like
And you have to play it down if you are successful, because you don't want to rub your nose in somebody else's business.
Yeah, you're right. And it's I guess if you sort of like if you got a promotion in the USA, someone would throw a party for it.
Yeah.
You know, they'd be full of like they'd be happy on your behalf.
Yeah. Well,
whereas in the UK, no one can be happy on someone else.
No, well, we're having this conversation about winning the lottery. When we were saying if you won the lottery, people would expect you to give them money.
Yeah.
But if you had a job that was really well paid, somebody wouldn't say to you, well...
No, give me some of that.
Yeah.
I guess it's because it's coming in a way of, you know, like a freebie if you want.
Yeah.
You don't work for it, you just sort of like been handed it over because you've won.
Yeah, I guess so.
Being American is like such a thing.
Right.
That I don't think other places have that as much.
I don't think people are necessarily dumb, and I don't think it's a question of being dumb. I think it's just that there's this idea of like, yeah, being the best. To think that like people in America, depending on where you're born, you can have access to care or not, it's frightening. And I don't know how you can speak about being the best when you can't even make sure that everybody's like taken care of. Are you treating everyone the same way in America? No, not everyone is treated the same way, just like not everyone is treated the same way in Europe.
Having been to America a lot, they often ask, obviously as a joke, but just like, do you know the royal family or anything like that?
So do you feel that generally, this big generalization, there's mockery towards the Americans and Americans towards the British is more like cute. We think you're cute.
Yeah, I would say that, yeah.
How do you feel about Americans thinking you're cute?
Well, it can be taken as a compliment, obviously, but if they think that we're, like, as a country, not really a force to be reckoned with, then just because we do all these, like, things that date back to long before the US was established, it's not really relevant that they can mock us for that.
Is it condescending, would you say?
A little bit.
Or ignorant?
More ignorant. It doesn't, like, hurt me. You know?
How do you feel Americans perceive the British, first of all?
They kind of look down on us.
You feel that?
I feel like Americans think like they're on the top of everything, and there's always competition between the two.
So do you feel like the British have a chip on their shoulder a little bit because of that?
Yeah, a lot.
What do you think the British are better at than Americans?
Being polite, really.
More polite?
Yeah. More talkative, more helpful.
More helpful? The British are more helpful?
Yeah, than Americans. But Americans are nice, they're funny, got good music.
Got good music, okay. Well, the British have good music too, man.
Americans are taking over the music scene.
But I mean, come on, there's a lot of great British music. So here's the thing that I think is going on here. We are not the same, the Brits and the Americans, but we sure have a lot of similarities. Compare us to the Japanese, or to Native Americans, or to Ethiopians, and the differences between Americans and the British seems relatively small. We're like blood siblings in the village that is the globe. So here's what all of this started to make me think of. There's a concept in psychoanalysis, I'm going to read you the definition, but it's called the narcissism of small differences. This comes from Freud. The narcissism of small differences is the idea that the more a relationship or community shares commonalities, the more likely the people in it are to engage in interpersonal feuds and mutual ridicule because of hypersensitivity to minor differences perceived in each other. We see this all over the world, between the Argentinians and the Chileans, for example, between the French and the Belgians. And indeed, I think this is what is happening between the Brits and the Americans. But at the end of the day, I feel like we make the little things that make us different much bigger than they really are.
The way that we speak and the words that we use.
Yeah.
And again, we were talking about this, weren't we?
Yeah.
About
we were
certain
talking
words.
about things like autumn versus fall. And
Yeah.
it's like that's often something that people like bring up. And for some, well, it's because it's a simpler word. And it's like, fall, American.
You guys don't say
classic.
fall?
No, we don't say fall. We
Oh,
say
interesting.
autumn.
Okay.
So this is autumn. Not fall.
But you can say autumn as well. All right, before we go any further, I want to quickly thank the sponsor of this video, BetterHelp, whose support has made it possible.
That one is quite true. I feel like they tried to make the words like a little bit easier sometimes.
Yeah.
Don't you think, like when you have like the pavement, it's the sidewalk.
Maybe shit having a water autumn, wouldn't it? Off the side of a cliff.
Right.
Personally, when I come to the UK, I have the impression that I've come halfway across the Atlantic, not just off the coast of continental Europe. And by that I mean, culturally, it feels so much more similar to the life that I had in the US. The convenience of life, the speed, the capitalism, the language.
Everyone speaks English. Everyone's like got the same sort of core values. I'm not necessarily a big Christian person at all, but we all come from this like Christian-based countries. America and Australia are English. There's some things that happen in history, but at the end of the day, we're kind of all the same group of people in that regard.
Culturally influenced.
Culturally influenced by the same group. So I personally don't see many differences at all.
I mean, I've got wonderful American friends who I adore, so that question for me is a difficult one because I think they're great, they're fantastic. I think the differences in the way our language is, in the way we use different words, that's where there's a difference.
So pretty minor.
Yeah.
Do you think that sometimes some of the British media or the portion of the British population that looks down on Americans, is it a way to deflect some of the issues that exist here? Could that be said of all societies?
Yeah, you can say that of all societies, but you can also say that about the media. They're always distracting, aren't they, from topics, whatever it is.
America's seen as very alpha male, if you think about it in terms of masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
There's an alpha maleness to Americans. And maybe it's just the way they speak, the accent, but you don't really have that sense of Britain. I think there's a stereotype of the repressed male, that soft-spoken.
Considering we're like right on the edge of Europe, we have more in common with America in many ways than we do with the rest of Europe, which in theory is where we should be more aligned. And I think there's sort of something that can feel sort of slightly odd about that, you know, like with the whole Brexit thing, breaking away more from where we're most closely connected to and sort of being in a situation where, you know, we're going to end up with chlorinated chicken instead.
There's this tendency to think of Americans as just, you know, they're simplistic, really.
Are you like annoyed by the Americans here in
Sometimes.
I wouldn't say
Depends how they are.
Now the interesting thing is I love to drag the US through the mud and criticize it for all the things that I think it deserves criticism for, but the second the Brits start criticizing me or the US, you have nothing to say. Kind of like I can criticize where I grew up, but you aren't allowed to. And the British, in my opinion, are doing their version of the same thing, criticizing themselves to no end, but no one wants an outside opinion. Maybe we all do this. I think we all do this. It's like pointing at someone else's flooding house when your own house is on fire.
So I lived in America for 6 years. I lived in California, Alabama, and Oklahoma for 3 years. Everyone hears my accent and is like, oh, where in America are you from? I'm like, well, I'm actually from Australia, but then they give me their little opinions on American stuff. So I've actually had to play defense a couple times since I've been out here.
Are you serious?
I'm so serious. I'm so serious. Because they talk about guns, and they talk about this, but they don't have like a very good understanding, not just English people, just people around the world, even in Australia, of the history of America and why those things became what they were. People trying to, you know, throw rocks and then hide their hands.
Yeah.
They don't want the blame to be on them, so it's easy to put it on the big superpower that is on everyone's TV.
My perception is I don't consider Americans necessarily lesser in terms of like lifestyle, culture per se. I just think it's a bit more apparent than it is in the UK, but the UK is just as problematic.
There's always sort of a sense in the past that like America was sort of, you know, 2 decades ahead of what was happening in this country. There is a sense that we're getting closer in a time frame.
I would say younger generations tend to be a bit more, and the only word I can think of it is shameful of the heritage. I think it's a lot of things from like colonialization and things like that. There tends to be a lot more shame around it.
We're a small island, right? So we've got a small island mentality, but because we've got a small island mentality, we've got to overcome it by kind of that impression that we're the best. And I think that's changing, though. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a total reflection of society now, but I think historically it has been, of course. Let's flip the question. How are Americans perceiving the British?
My answer to that is there is a power dynamic going on, and for better or for worse, the US is much more of a world superpower right now. So I don't think that the US feels threatened necessarily, like competitive with Great Britain. Because of that, I think there's kind of like they're cute, you know what I mean? Like they're Harry Potter and James Bond and sophisticated and, you know.
Use words like autumn.
Exactly. But I also think that there's also a major degree of ignorance. Like the US is so self-involved. We're not even paying attention to what's going on elsewhere in the world. So there's not even enough to form an opinion, you know. Now this video was definitely supposed to be in good fun. I harbor no ill will towards the British. I find our rivalries as human beings across cultures, across nations, to be comical and interesting. It's like an insight into human psychology. And despite all of the, criticizing going on here, I'd like to end on a positive note. I'd like to express my appreciation for a few things that I think the British do better than Americans. Your healthcare system, for one. Also, the Premier League. They say football was invented in England, and if that is true, as someone with Argentinian background, I can only thank you. I also have to thank you for your incredible music. What a contribution to our collective heritage. It is a foreign idea to me to have a royal family, but I respect the commitment to tradition.
I did move here the week that the Queen died, so it was really interesting to see. I think my first impression of the British as a public was that of mourning for their queen, the 14-hour-long line to go see her lying in state. So I think it was a little bit of a shock. This might sound silly, but how procedural the British can be. I noticed that tends to be, every British person I've met tends to be very procedural, as opposed to Americans, I think, are a little bit more, dare I say, free-spirited or individualistic. So, I think that's not to say that one is better than the other.
And as a final note, we are obviously a world of individuals, and so stereotypes never fully work. Still, I find it so fascinating to explore the stereotypes and cliches that we have for one another. Not always, but often there is some sort of basis of truth there, or else they wouldn't spread and persist as they do. Anyway, having said all of that, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please consider liking it, which tells the algorithms to share this with more people. I thought it was fun, and it's a format I'd love to continue exploring. And also consider subscribing so that you can see more of the material that I make. With that, I hope to see you soon.
Interesting.
It was interesting, and his take on it at the end there, I think hit the nail on the head. We're a world full of individuals,
yeah.
So you can't sort of generalise, your stereotypes sort of thing. But there is a few things. I've seen some people who put in comments about Britain, and obviously people who've never been to Britain.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things I always say: if you want to judge something, go and have a look.
Yeah.
Go and have a look at it, and then you can judge it.
Yourself.
Yeah. It's it's how many people think we all know each other. And all we eat is English. All we eat is beans.
I was saying the food's terrible. The food is amazing over here.
Food's very good over here. Yeah.
We've been to America, and I wouldn't have said it was any better over there than it is here.
No, it's very.
I would.
I'd say
100%.
The portion size is a lot bigger.
It's the diversity of food you can get anywhere. You can go just on the street where we live, pretty much, and you can have 10, 15 different nationality cuisines.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. If you in America, they specialise in in Texas, the Mexican food there's amazing. Over here, you don't get a lot of Mexican food, but over here you get a lot of Indian food.
Yeah, Indian food's probably the nicest.
Yeah, Indian and subcontinent food. Yeah, I would agree. But it's a lot of people in America think we just eat baked beans and meat potato and things like that. Where we don't. I don't think I can't remember last time.
Yeah, we have mushy peas sometimes.
Fish and chips. Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing.
I don't think everything you've just said. I never eat.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
I would say 95% of the time, the food we eat is from another country.
Yeah, 100% of the time for me.
I think same goes vice versa for the USA and for the UK as well. Is if you go to the USA, you might interview someone from California and get a very different opinion of someone from New York.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the same here. If you interview someone in London, you're going to get a very different opinion of someone from Manchester or Liverpool or Leeds.
Yeah.
Even the different cities. Yeah. And I think you'd have a lot more people talking to you if you went further north as well. And London's not the be all and end all of the UK. It's the capital city. I get
There's a lot of people that think.
But when you look at the UK, you've also got Edinburgh, you've got Cardiff.
Yeah.
You've got Belfast, which are big cities and the capitals in their own right for their own respective countries. And it's very different opinions of what the English would be. You go to Edinburgh and ask them what do they think of the English, or go to Manchester and ask them what do they think of the Scottish or the Welsh. Yeah. And it's very different again.
Yeah. Or if we go to Wales, we're not very welcome.
Or just go to the north and ask what they think of the south.
Exactly. And it's where does the south start? Everyone wants to be a northerner.
Yeah.
So where does the south start? Where do you think the south starts?
It's just the bottom of Birmingham, Stafford.
You think Stafford? So north of Birmingham. Stafford's north.
Birmingham's north.
You think Birmingham's in the north?
Yeah.
I would say that it's in the middle.
I'd say
well, it is. It's the Midlands, isn't it? That's why you can't.
Yeah.
That's why it's where the south start.
I'd say they're more southern than they are northern.
Just because they're south of us.
No, but I think
people from London will say Birmingham's north.
I know, but they wouldn't call them northerners, right?
No,
I wouldn't call Birmingham southerner, but people from Birmingham have the similar attitude to the people from the south. Is what I'm saying.
You think?
Yeah, they're not. They're more southern than
I think they're kind of in
between. Right in the middle.
They're irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. They're irrelevant. Yeah. That's the nail on the head. Yeah. But I don't think many. I think that's I don't think many people look down on anybody in that kind of case, especially when it comes to nationalities.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised. I don't know anyone that does anyway.
No.
But if they do, they keep it to themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be if that's the case.
Yeah.
But we love Americans, don't we?
Okay, yeah.
We've got a bunch of
We've
friends,
got one.
Americans. Yeah, we've got two. Anyway, it's a good little. It's a good debate to have, isn't it? What people think.
Yeah, it's very
but I'd say
interesting.
I don't think you can call somewhere without just by seeing what it is on TV or reflections from that, because we're not like Downton Abbey, or anything like that, or James Bond.
Yeah.
There's no life like that. But let us know what you think in the comments anyway.
Yeah.
Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.